It's not funny.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cerberus at the Improv. It's the Earthquake edition today. Timothy and I were shaking in our boots because we're little girls. Andre, you seem fine. You don't seem at all impacted by the earthquake.
No, because we're a little bit far from each other. Huh?
Really?
5,000 kilometers. It will take maybe 2-3 seconds to arrive.
Quebecers, they're cut from a different cloth. You're stronger than us, British Columbians.
Parallel universe.
This is I feel like the Tokyo newscasters and all those bad YouTube videos we see where everything's shaking around them and they're still trying to do the news.
We could add some intrigue to this episode. Tim, you and we can shake our cameras.
We shake the camera thing. I was like, there we go. End up knocking my armoire over. That would be bad.
Yeah, so for people who don't know what we're talking about, there was what was it, a 4.8 earthquake?
4.7 now.
4.7. 4.7. It was at 1:26 Pacific time.
So 5 minutes ago.
Yes.
Maybe
you will have a second wave.
Near Seashell.
Was it, was it underwater or was it on seashell?
On land.
Yeah. Hey, Sue.
So
we just had an earthquake here.
You can say that we are the first one to
you heard it here first, guys. Yeah.
Oh, the
breaking news.
Breaking news.
Right.
Yeah. We're breaking into the news.
That's
industry.
funny. Earthquake.usgs.gov reported it before Canada.
No, it's the same thing. It's the same thing as Canada.
It's the same system.
It's amazing how quickly we got that. Yeah. If this was like 35, 40 years ago, there was an earthquake. I don't you'd have to call some number and they'd have to update.
Come on, when you're milking your cow in your farm, you don't care about the earthquake.
You don't reveal about the earthquake. Yeah. The preacher uses it the following Sunday to talk about angels moving furniture.
All right. Well, I guess we should get our act together. I don't know if I mentioned I'm Payman Ascari. Timothy Knight, you're here. How's it going?
I'm here. Yes, you missed an earthquake, Sue. 4.7 near Seashell. I can't even say that word. In Seashell.
Seashell.
Midwest BC. Southwest, I suppose. Right, continue, Payman. I'm busy interrupting again.
No, it's okay. While I introduce Andre, maybe update your little nickname down there. On Mr. Maloche, how are you?
Yes.
I'm fine. And you have this Sant Andreas fail. Maybe it will split the country in half from west to east or north to south. I said, why do we build a wall between United States and Canada? Why we don't dig a channel where we would put full of water and alligators? So that would protect the border. Sorry, I'm digressing.
BC could start that. We could get this earthquake to push Vancouver Island offshore.
Yes, but you can have crocodile in it with fentanyl. You drug crocodile.
And what about our snow crabs? Then what? Rather than you're gonna import. Is there a tariff on importing snow crabs? So we're gonna import crocodiles. We have to pay a tariff on that because the Floridians will get upset.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm not in favor of this plan.
Okay.
No, we should send more money to Zelensky. That'll fix it.
This solution to everything. Give money to Ukraine.
Yeah. Are we talking politics or are we talking geography or anatomy?
Well, one crocodile is another man's alligator, right?
There you go. Newfoundland got it right.
Yes, we've got a great border. It's called the Grand Banks. Yeah. Anytime there was off 6 bankers, just push a Titanic across. What's that? Iceberg Alley in Newfoundland.
Yes, you're right. The Titanic.
Yep.
And the Federal Reserve, 1912.
The Federal Reserve.
We always go back to this day.
Maybe that's where the gold is. If it's not in Fort Knox, it's on the Titanic.
You think Mark Carney is a reincarnation of Jacob Schiff, who was?
See, that's kind of funny. You said reincarnation.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
Right?
That's good. Reincarnation.
Yeah, reincarnated.
Next week's title.
Yeah. So then he went over to the dark secret societies of the city of London and partaking in their ancient Templarian, Mansonian tools, and was reincarnated and sent back to Canada.
They will censor us.
Our waters have sunk all the
All the
unsinkables.
unthinkables. Yep. Yep.
Bermuda Triangle of the North.
Oh, that's an old myth.
Bermuda?
Bermuda Triangle?
Well, we have that. It's called the Grand Banks. The largest shoal in the entire continent, which is it's remarkably shallow. It's not exactly deep. And yet there's more ships sunk off of it than you can shake a stick at. Now, of course, Newfoundland, it's just the way what do they call it now, I suppose? The Gulf of America.
Oh yes. There's a lot of Spanish galleon there. With gold.
Because the Gulf of Mexico / America, with the hurricanes sweep up the Carolinas and up New York, and then curls back out.
Okay.
East of Nova Scotia and south of Newfoundland. And we get these amazing heavy rains and high winds, which are at the tail end of the hurricane. That curls out and slowly dies off in the mid-Atlantic, rushes into the Labrador coming down, and the Baltic flow coming down, which is a cold flow. And that whole section there, just shy of the mid-Atlantic, 100-foot waves.
100 foot.
100 foot.
A little above average.
Little bit, yeah.
If you have a lot of galleons that sank in this part of the ocean, maybe we can send Elon Musk after we will have audited Fort Knox.
Well, you
try
wonder
to find gold. If they don't find gold there, maybe they will find gold.
Yeah, all that Spanish gold is off on those banks, and then so the Newfoundlanders, the fishermen, will pick it up when they're out jigging cod, and they'll bring it home and they peel the gold foil off of it, and they have the chocolate underneath.
Yeah, we're digging ourselves now.
It's not a myth.
We're digging.
Laura Secord.
This show is off to a horrible start, which is most of our episodes.
You just survived an earthquake, and still went on air because you had the stones of a Brahmin bull, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, we may have the stones of a Brahmin bull, but don't have enough testosterone to actually do anything with it.
I can. I'll tell you a story. I was in Guatemala, and we got hit with an earthquake.
Testosterone?
Kind of. It involves me cowering under a table, but
Right.
So it was a much worse earthquake. Like the entire hotel started shaking, and I was hiding under the table. I remember thinking the only thing, I was there on a business trip, and I didn't tell anyone. And I'm like, God, please, fling me to a gay district in Mexico. I don't want people to know I was in Guatemala. They'll be like, what the hell is this guy doing in Guatemala? He's in a drug trade.
Yeah. So the earthquake has been upgraded to a 5.1.
Oh,
5.1.
I don't feel like as much of a coward for screaming
That's
like
okay.
a little girl.
If you one of the aftershock hits and you dive under the table, we're okay with that. It'll be live, and then you can cut it later and say, it's I don't know, we'll make something up that'll make it look good.
No. After the earthquake, he will get up with his fist like this, and he will say,
"Oh yeah,
fight!"
He'll scream, "Team Canada!"
Got to catch up on my ear.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. We look like three fools. Take it up.
We have an agenda. Let's go.
All right. So the first agenda.
Stupid Mother Earth getting in the way of our agenda.
Our flimsy agenda.
Right.
When we started this podcast, we made a promise that we would bring Canadian news to the Canadian citizens, and then we promptly violated that promise by talking about U.S. news.
The USA.
Because the tariffs. So we finally have some Canadian news. Ontario, they've called their own snap election. Before getting to that, I just wanted to mention one thing. I interviewed one of the candidates running for the New Blue Party of Ontario, Mr. Stocky, Don Stocky or something. When we had the elections in BC a few months back, I reached out to John Rustad, no offense to him personally, but him and his party, and I asked him to come on. And originally they agreed, but then they looked into me and they found out that I'm with the People's Party, and then they refused. I'm not saying this because I'm personally hurt. I'm saying this because Ontario has 3 populist or common sense parties. In BC, we have none. let's start the conversation there, and then we can go on to this whole concept of Westminster system and snap elections. Mr. Maloche, go ahead.
Well, in Quebec, we don't have a populist party. We have socialist party. There's a little difference there. So it's maybe it's a good thing for Ontario to have all those parties. My question would be, will that split the vote? Because Doug Ford will be reelected, and what will be the possibility of electing an MLA from a populist movement? If you don't, what will happen. It was a snap election. So it was 3 weeks of electoral campaign, not even 3 weeks. So it's quite short. You cannot organize an electoral campaign. You cannot organize good debates. Well, you're never able to organize good debates. Yes, Arnold Eno, that we all know. And what will happen? Ontario, I think Doug Ford is called an election just to bypass the Canadian scandal about corruption and about the management of the pandemic and what has. They're all reacting to Trump's election and Trump's, I would say, nationalism. So I think that it's a fake election. It's a fake election in Ontario. We'll see how it will go, but
do we have any polls releasing numbers about these three populist parties at the provincial level in the Ontario election?
May I check?
Right. I mean, I'm not suggesting that they have any real validity, but I'm interested in seeing what story is being told, and because it leans into my next statement, which is, in a multi-party system, there's no such thing as splitting the vote.
No, exactly. You're right, but that's
right?
That's what everybody.
But if you have in a political spectrum, you have a short wavelength of very closely aligned parties, then they have to fight harder to earn that vote, right? So, for example, go at a federal level, the Conservative Party likes to complain that the People's Party supporters are splitting the vote, and my statement is, well, why don't you just work harder?
Well,
so the more parties I see engaging, the happier I am, because I would rather have 50 or 60 small parties spring up all around the country, vying to and using the Westminster system to express themselves publicly, than have the uniparty own and rule the narrative. I'd rather have which actually leans into developing an anarchistic worldview, but I'd rather have disparate voices, which is what we experienced leading up to the convoy. The Freedom Convoy was across the country. You had a number of small protest organizations that sprung up and participated in different types of activism across the country. And then later on, the Freedom Convoy galvanized and crystallized that voice and branded it and gave it more of a national identity. But then even after the mandates were suspended, several of these organizations still continue, right? So, and I'm in favor of that, because I'd rather the people were engaged than not engaged.
But you have two things. The first thing that you mentioned is yes, I agree with you. That would be a characteristic of a healthy democracy. But those small parties, do they have a voice? They're censored. They have a voice on the alternative media, social media. Mainstream media, they never give them the possibility to express themselves. There was a by-election in September in Quebec, in La Sarre-Villemar, and the People's Party of Canada was not invited by Radio-Canada when the independent candidate was invited to speak on national media. And then I will refer to what you said, payment with Rostad. They first accepted the invitation, and then they refused. Yeah. They're afraid of debating outside of mainstream media. That's the first thing. The second thing, you said something about the movement activism. Can they gather, federate their energy to become more than an activist movement and become a political, I will not say party, political force? they're working together with common ideas, common policies. If you look at the New Blue Party or the PPO in Ontario, People's Party of Ontario, I went to check the two websites. I could not even find candidates, or very hardly I could find candidates. Maybe it's because it is new and it is not well organized. I understand that. But after that, I said, where are the policies? Yeah. And I could not find them. But I would say maybe Doug Ford doesn't have any policy anymore either. I don't know. I didn't go and check the Conservative Party of Ontario. Yeah. But where are the ideas? 3 weeks of electoral campaign, and that's it. You go to vote. You vote for what? It's a popularity contest? Team Canada again?
Yeah.
But in Ontario.
Yeah.
So it is for me. It is a joke. Snap election like this are always a joke. They want to consolidate their power or to hide something, hide corruption that we see everywhere in Canada.
Yeah. And the incumbents always have a head start.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that's a given. But
head start.
I've been toying around with this idea of, I mean, it's one thing to have codified rules. It's another thing to have sort of customs and traditions that you follow in politics. And those things assume that you have a sense of morality. But if your morality kind of erodes away, those institutions are still there, but they don't serve the same purpose. I'm talking about this snap election. Like a snap election works when the legislators are working in the interests of the people. So 51% say, it's time for a new election. But it doesn't work when it's politically expedient. So Doug Ford, he realizes that he can use this Trump tariff thing to get a stronger bargaining position for a new election. That, to me, that tells me the institutions they're failing now.
There's a simple fix.
Mm-hmm. That's right. why he's using it. He's using it, and he's not serving a democratic opinion.
The simple term is you legislate an election date. Done.
Yes, but that's where I was going with that. But I was wondering if you guys wanted to push back and say, no, Payman, you don't understand the spirit of dissolving Parliament, the Westminster system.
Right, and it's under.
No, I think you understand.
This goes back to the balance of tradition and oral tradition and practice and cultural, interpretation of historical activity, and an actual moral code, or at the very least, a unified approach to doing a certain thing, like a unified approach to politicking, and the country politicians at all levels are morally and intellectually corrupt. So what once upon a time this was a culturally accepted, like an oral tradition, because it didn't need to be codified, because this was the culture. That culture no longer exists in an unadulterated form, because it's been diluted to some degrees and then accented to thickened to other degrees. You introduce 6 million new Canadians into a population in 3-4 years. That's what 6 of 35 is 20%.
20%.
That's madness.
1/6.
Right, 1/6, so 17%, right? Something like that. So, right, and that's madness. So then the leadership gets away with it because the corruption is throughout the entire system. And look at 2021 election, 35-day election, snap call. Elections Canada, half of their staff were working from home because of the stupid mandate garbage. It took 2 weeks into the election, and campaign proper, before Elections Canada got caught up.
To gather all the data and be ready for the election.
That's right. So that they could support all the candidates, including uniparty candidates. It took them 2 weeks to get caught up, to support, to properly get everybody papered in and marked up in order that they would, to legally compete or to comply according to our Westminster process. So when, Doug Ford is taking advantage of these things and then paints it all in red, white, and blue, or red and white, and anybody who votes for Doug Ford needs their head examined. Bottom line, if you live in Ontario and you vote for Doug Ford, you are doing yourself no favors.
They're sadomasochists too. Don't underestimate the psychological effect that happened since 5 years.
if right now, if the Team Canada Uniparty is giving us was a national sport, it would be with little small lobotomy poles running around jabbing each other in the back of the eye socket. Right?
Yeah, but
The most blind person wins.
the question that comes to my mind is, okay, a lot of people talk about democracy. For me, it does not exist. It's a game of self-interest, and like you mentioned, it's not the institutions that are corrupt. It's people who are more morally corrupt. I had a conversation today with a little coffee shop that I go to buy my coffee, and we were talking about corruption everywhere. In Quebec, there's the system for driver's license and license plate, and they implement a new computer system in 2023. The cost was about $800 million. Now they're evaluating the cost at 1.2 million. The system is failing, and people who were programming, managers, they hide all the data and the cost of the real development, and now it's a scandal. And you look at this and you say, wait, if the pot of jar is there, the pot of candy is there, why you would not take it? So morally, everybody in the system, as we all have to ask ourselves, what's our moral duty? If we go into office and we don't have a good moral, we will be easily corrupted. A lot of people who arrive here, they lack morale. And when they are hired by the government or public service, they unions, they defend their work. They say that they defend their workers. Canada Post was in strike. Everybody's defending his own self-interest, not thinking about the collective common good, if I would say.
Yes.
So what is happening now in Ontario, they will just, like Payman said, he will just consolidate his power for negotiating. But it's right.
I want to go to something Sue said, but what you were describing, you said anybody that votes for Doug Ford should have their head examined. You could apply that nationally to the Liberal Party.
Yes, but I like picking on Ontario.
To each their own. When a government in Canada is in good polling period, they call an election, early or not. When a government is in trouble in the polls and have lost moral authority to govern, they delay an election.
Yes, so that's an interesting observation. But let's look at this federally. Well, let's go back to Doug Ford. So he's called this snap election in the middle of all this heated fear mongering and faux patriotism, FAUX patriotism. If he's calling a snap election, which is counter to what Sue's saying, but that doesn't mean she's wrong. It means, why is he calling a snap election? Because he can think in this atmosphere, he can win. And he's probably right, because look at America. They've never elected another president during war. They stay with the same president. So do we have Canadians who are likely to respond the same way? When politically we are in some form of cultural crisis, are we likely to swap out new heads of state?
Well, you talk about when you are at war, you don't have election. Think about Zelensky. That's the first point. The second, right? No, but the second point was very funny, because I don't follow hockey since many years because I have other interests. But yesterday with the Four Nation final between, and it was very funny to see Quebec nationalist who promotes sovereignty of Quebec cheering Team Canada with the Canadian flag. I was laughing. I was telling myself, this is a schizophrenic society. They that's why I talk about self-interest. Yesterday they changed their SIM card and they were all cheering Team Canada. So everybody's supposed to be cheering Canada, Team
Change
Canada.
their SIM card just so that the CIA has to carry 2 separate files on you.
That's well, come on. It's been what, for 6 years? You every 18 months you change the SIM card. You had the pandemic, and after that you had the Slava Ukraine, and after that it was Trump is Hitler, and
that's it reminds me of like Game Boy and whatnot, when you play a different game, swap it a different card.
Exactly. So honestly, politically speaking, it's boring, but it shows the mental state of most Canadians.
This is hilarious. New Noise Inc. Whoever the guy on the right of my screen is, he's 100% correct. His name is right under his
that would be Andre.
Whoever the guy,
moral relativism. This is
me. If I look at the screen, the one on the right, it is Tim.
But I look at my. Don't wink. Really? You trying to get me in trouble?
Yes, of course.
No. So yes, the moral relativism is actually, in my opinion, the single largest root underlying all the trouble we have in the West today.
And we cannot. The idea is not to attack people directly; is to make them think about how we conduct our lives in our private life and on public space. But public space, as an ordinary citizen, voting is important, but getting informed about what is happening, not always following. I look at the polls. You look at the polls, they have polls, federal polls every 2-3 days, and depending who's polling, you have Carney will win, Poiliev will lose. Then it is like, wait, this is an instrument. It's a tool to think. It's not the truth. So as a ordinary citizen, we have a duty to at least try to find information that is credible, and this is difficult. It's very difficult.
It's difficult because at all levels, public and private, those involved in the political game have an axe to grind. They have personal goals.
Yes,
every one of us. That includes me, right? I have personal goals. I happen to like gainful employment. Right. So we have particular personal goals. I'm really in my head now squirreling off on all the problems with moral relativism. And we have a system that it's taken us centuries, centuries to get to this thing. And I think when you have these pop-up populist parties like what's happening in Ontario, I think this is terrific. Because even if, politicians watching a hockey game, even if these multiple little political populist parties that are showing up during the Ontario election don't have the weight or influence to actually carry, and win seats and whatnot, that doesn't matter. What matters is the moral relative, the set of morals that are captured by that small party and those supporters has at least crystallized into words and language and expression, rather than being this vague, this malaise.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
This fog in the air where we all feel something's wrong, but nobody can put words to it.
You talk about small parties. I will refer to now because we're referring to hockey. And I will say Payman is right. What's her name? Danielle Saint-Onge, who was the Ministry of Culture, and she said we will double the budget of CBC Radio Canada. So Payman wrote. He said, okay, they will have double in the double. They will double their score. But I would like to refer to Slapshot. You remember the movie?
The movie, yes,
with Paul Newman. Paul Newman is 42. He's playing. He's player coach, and they hire those goons, the three brothers that are starting to behave very, very badly on the ice, and they're starting to win. So populists, one day they will have to lower the glove, just drop the glove and start to real fight. When you attack a politician like Polyev, do not keep your gloves. Put them down and start to fight. And if you have to, that's I think.
I did my own little thought experiment. I'm pretending to be Einstein now with his thought experiments, which were not founded in actual mathematics, but whatever. That's a different topic. 3 phases. 3 phases is the quiet Canadian protest, where we're all having bouncy castles and barbecues and feeding the homeless in downtown Ottawa, which is very important. Don't get me wrong. It was a landmark moment in history. And then you have your Martin Luther King Jr.'s who are doing sit-ins, like physically putting themselves in harm's way and forcing the police to engage with them and forcing the cameras to record what was happening, which we're not there yet. But we do have protesters up in the logging roads who will do it, right? And at oil line that will do it, and electrical dams that will do it. So they'll go. And the third one is the Malcolm X. Physical violence.
Well, that's why I say I always refer to civil war, but it's not what I'm hoping for.
Right.
But the long-term tendency is that they have pane and circus, games and bread, but now it's not enough. They will want blood because blood.
These are the 2 thugs in Slapshot.
Yes,
they're
starting to win the game. And because they're violent, and people, they say they start to have more audience. People are following the club, and I remember when they arrived in another city to play, and they're in the school bus, and they all show their butt outside, and it is a totally vulgar movie, but it is an icon of what people want. They want one day they want people to politicians now. They're like very polite and come on, and even the debate, I'm sorry, they're castrated. They cannot express their own idea.
I want to say,
this boring.
You mentioned something about the hockey game. I was watching people these days. They latch on to something and they lose their mind, and it's not just the politicians. So when this hockey thing happened, when they booed the hockey game, and then yesterday I think Canada won. I don't watch sports. I'm too busy.
Canada won, yes.
Good for us.
The 51st state won.
The 51st state won. Yeah.
The press secretary of Trump, this beautiful young woman, once they asked her a question yesterday, she said, "Yes, President Trump will be in Boston watching the game between United States and the 51st state, and we welcome Governor Trudeau to watch it with." And she's laughing. She's laughing. Of course, maybe they're laughing a little bit less today because Canada won. But
this is 1700s Europe.
Maybe.
Right? Where the aristocracy are intentionally inviting each other to come over to their new castles, right? The high era of French art and whatnot. And they're all bragging about their new multi-billion. Come on over to my castle because yours looks like garbage. You can't even build a castle. Come on over. But we'll invite you and and this is the same aristocratic behavior.
There's a concept, the word it is potlatch. Potlatch, it is a word that was described by Georges Bataille, French philosopher. And the potlatch is you have 2 king or 2 warrior. Then they have their army. And one chief invites the other one and start to give him gift, lots of gold and women, and to show him his power.
Right.
And the other person, the other chief, has to equal or be able to offer more, because the purpose of the gift is not to congratulate somebody; it is to humiliate him. And this purpose of I'm so wealthy, I'm so rich that I will be, like you always say to him, I will be merciful.
Yes, am I not merciful?
Am I not merciful? I'm bigger than you. I can give you more than you can ever dream.
Yeah.
So that's
This is a play on the concept of tribute.
Yes.
Right. So, for example, like King David conquers all of the surrounding nations. And he says, if you don't want me to finish you all off, you give me the money. And then by the time Solomon steps in, they're in so much of a position of economic power and cultural power, they don't even have to have any military might anymore. They don't even have to do that. So you move into positions where the United States is so much control of the market that they can literally shame the state leader of an ally and do it on public television. And the ally is obligated to just smile and wave.
Well, you mentioned something important. The allies. Do United States have allies?
Well, vassals.
They have vassals.
They have vassals. Yeah. So so now we have a new lubricant. We can remarket Vaseline.
All right, we're not going there. We're going to go to New Noise Inc. He made two good comments. Doug Ford is in a pinch. I don't like him anymore, but he knows the Sunshine List dynamic is against him. That's why he always goes with Trudeau. The Sunshine List Fed employees is a family vote. Everyone votes for the high pay, pension, and benefits.
What's the Sunshine List?
I was going to ask you, what is that?
I'm not familiar.
Is that the list of people that make over $100,000 in public sector?
Fed employees is a family vote. Is that a nepotism or a despotism? Because we do know that. What did we suggest the other that of those who vote? Of those who vote, about 40% of the voting bloc are public employees at some level, and so are inevitably voting to keep their paycheck.
They are loyal to their employers.
Right? So I'm guessing 100K over is the published list. So anybody making over 100K in Ontario so you're suggesting that anybody making over 100K in Ontario has a very high likelihood of voting for Ford?
Can you clarify, New Noise? Is that public sector only, or public and private over 100K?
I think it's public sector, I would say.
Is there a difference at this point?
Do we have
anybody in Ontario who works in the private sector?
Good point. But it goes back to what you were saying, Payman. The snap election is there to consolidate for Doug Ford. It's there to consolidate his power.
Reaffirm
his power.
Yeah, because
New Noise might be driving. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
He's hosting the show.
So
we're gonna go and have a coffee.
It depends on the next earthquake. It was in my brain and then I lost it. What's next?
Welcome to my world.
Right.
Sometime. Okay, Sue Kellen Dyer. Will the new SNC operate from Ukraine while they engineer our new high-speed train from Toronto to Montreal? Largest infrastructure project while we are prorogued.
So you can introduce the next topic with Ukraine.
So I have a question. I saw somebody bragging about saying that this new proposal was the largest infrastructure in Canadian history. And I thought, does anybody forget St. Lawrence?
St. Lawrence, the river?
Well,
you could have
the causeway.
If you just stop that, does anybody forget? Everybody forgets everything these days.
Everybody forgets everything. Try to just segue.
No, but
well, Sue's hijacking the show.
Well, now she's referring to SNC-Lavalin. She's referring to Jody. What's her name?
Raylan Bold.
Wilson Raybould.
Jody Wilson Raybould, and it is coming up now. It is coming up now, and I'm not surprised. I can guarantee you, when I was working in Hydro-Quebec, we were dealing with SNC-Lavalin, and with very, very expensive contract, developing contract. And when the scandal arrived with Jody Wilson Raybould, it was buried under a pile of bureaucracy. Justin Trudeau got away with it. And what you're seeing now, you can relate this with Ukraine and the new announcement with the high-speed train in Canada. In Quebec, we have the REM, the Electro Metropolitan Electrical Train. That was financed by the Caisse de dépôt and placement du Québec, which is the the Quebec pension plan.
Wow.
And it was supposed to cost $6 billion. It cost
Nothing
12.
to see here.
And it is not working. Every time you have a snowstorm or a little bit disruptancy, it is not working. And they shove it to the throat of Montrealers. And it was a consortium that was associated with SNC-Lavalin and Alstom in France, that was bought back by United States. So those big consortium, what they do, when they have this type of contract, they cut the cost and they accelerate the development, but after that they increase the cost. What happened with the money in Ukraine? It's the same thing. The money in Ukraine just disappeared. They want to audit Ukraine now because $300 billion of money, half of it disappeared. But I followed the crisis since 2022. And people, they're discovering this, and I'm saying, shit, 3 years ago, we knew where the money was going. We knew it. With Hunter Biden, with what happened with the Maidan, we knew exactly that it was a black hole in Ukraine. Mm-hmm. You cannot imagine the number of Ukrainian people in Europe that are wealthy, with a lot of money, expensive cars, and you have 1.1 million men who died since 3 years in Ukraine. But that's
Andre, you said we knew where it was going, like it's going to be wasted in a black hole.
Yes,
you knew that.
I knew that.
Tim knows that. Liberals, they don't want to know that. Like something about this Ukraine thing, it had nothing to do with Ukraine. It became a bedrock of their liberal principles. And if you even criticized it, they would go nuts. Like when the dentist touches your nerve, they would freak out.
No, you're right. And you're right. We knew it, but we are censored completely. And some whistleblower tried to warn people, population, MPs that yes,
houses the largest laundry.
What can I say? The show is done there. There's nothing more to say. You saw what happened between Trump and Zelensky. And Trump said, wait a second, we sent $300 billion. And the money is guaranteed in Europe, but United States, they will be in the ass because they will lose everything. But honestly, since 4 years of the Biden administration, they just sent the money in the black hole. 60 or 70% of this money went to the military complex in the United States. Yeah. And the rest was laundry money in Ukraine. That's the reality. Nobody wanted to talk about it. It was Slava Ukraine with a little flag. Like I said, they changed the SIM card. Now everybody's discovering, because you have Dodge in United States, Fort Knox. Now Elon Musk is they're making jokes about it, but behind that,
he's going to bring a live camera in to see if the gold is still there.
That
reminds me of someone in the audience will probably remember first. In the late 90s, there was a
show,
Mexican American who used to do these dramatizations, and
I remember
we're going to open this wall and find Al Capone's hoard.
Exactly, I remember that.
This is that. That's Musk recreating that.
Yes, with the master of telereality, who is Donald Trump. He's the master of telereality.
Macron.
Stu, you should do stand-up comedy.
Yeah,
we have 3 drama phenoms currently in power.
It's because Sue Kellen, she didn't see the picture I sent you with Starmer, Macron, and what was the other one? Zelensky in the center, and Trudeau under the bed.
So let me just read this. New noise. Can you guys understand this? It sounds smart. Didn't matter. PTB wanted a regime change in Russia, thinking bad economy and young Russian deaths would produce regime change, i.e. Putin out. What's PTB?
I don't know.
Come on, guys.
PTB.
Somebody help us out. I understand the gist of it. They wanted a regime change.
The regime change in Russia. It is in the book since 100 years. They try to change you can see how they wanted to
Powers that
split.
be. Okay, so now you're referring to the UN.
Powers, yes.
Globalists.
Largely to the UN, probably to Asian
Well,
families.
you can go deep, but the Club of Rome, you can go in 1945. They wanted to cut Russia in many small parts because Russia has the most greatest natural resource. Huh?
It's too big. It's divide and conquer.
Well,
right?
go tell this
take it over.
Go tell this.
I'm sorry, we're in Canada right now.
No, but
careful what you say about it's too big.
We're not too big because we're too centralized.
I will just, Russia is a civilization.
Slow on the acronyms.
Yes, but why I say this is because if we go back to Ukraine and if we go back to what they are trying to do now, to expose corruption, it's everywhere. You don't have to dig very far; it's everywhere. So what everyone who will now, everybody can be a whistleblower today. When Snowden was kicked out of the United States with the NSA. He had to go to. They denied him asylum everywhere except in Russia, and he was bringing some insight. Julian Assange, it was the same thing. Yeah. Now everybody can be a whistleblower because with the whistleblower they have become official. For the first 25 years with the 9/11 event,
yes,
and everybody was having a little part of truth. But they cannot say it. Now you have Elon Musk, who says we will do a tele-reality show. And like you said, we will bring a live camera and we will see if there are gold in Fort Knox.
Yeah.
Right now, there are some people who robbed the system for 25 or 50 years. Now there's a congresswoman. She's a senator in the United States. She makes what, $555,000? No, she has a bank account that is about $200 million. Can you imagine the number of the level of corruption?
This is what I was thinking. Like the IQ in the audience is like the average IQ in the audience is a couple points.
Well, this is no good. We said we were going to have blue collar conversation, and now we're all like these educated people. Get off our chat.
It's because payment, you don't calculate the IQ right. It is 33 each.
Of us?
Yes.
Of us? Oh, so between the three of us, we break 3 digits.
We have 100, but
99.
So it's a good thing we have the fourth wall because they're the only intelligent ones here.
That's exactly what I was.
I'm gonna let's focus here, guys. Wolf said something. They can relinquish Ukraine because they have pincers in Romania and Syria, new compounds. I would say they lost Ukraine, and it's like you try to get more wins than you have lost.
I can tell you.
I don't think they don't lose Ukraine any more than you lose Bavaria or lose Romania or lose Belarus, right? Like they're always there, right? So you just wait 20 years and then go back in it again. So you do all your silent, quiet, dirty deeds until all that cream rises to the top and they become exposed. And by that time, you just flip over what's in the top and the underneath continues. We've watched all of these movies, right? Where the big bad guys and the big heroes fight at the top. And then once they're all dead or they've all moved on or they've all taken their glory, all the dirty lieutenants and regulars underneath, they just continue on their merry way unabated. That's the history of Europe. Well, it's the history of the world, right? The cream rises to the top and gets scraped off.
Ukraine never rose. Since 1992, Ukraine never rose to the top. Ukraine just went down the drain. The demography in Ukraine was 54 million before just after the collapse of Soviet Union, and the electrical grid was never improved. There was no development for 30 years, 35 years.
Sounds like Canada.
Well, not that. You cannot compare both, but you can compare the structure of corruption that was rising for 30 to 35 years. We think that the corruption is only arrived with Trudeau. No, it's there since 50 years, and it cripples slowly in the system, very slowly.
Yeah. It's leprosy. For a long time, you just don't have any feeling. right? And by the time it begins to actually show up on your body and you're losing fingertips, right, that you're already a dead man walking.
Well,
So
if you
Wolf
go,
says relinquish is not losing. I wasn't paying attention. Who's he talking to? Andre?
Anybody?
Me?
I don't know. But
Anyway,
if you go back with the comment of Sue about young, no,
ask a young Canadian what, yes, and they don't know
Wolf,
because they're not taught.
Oh, sorry, this one. Yeah,
Yeah.
ask a young
yes,
Canadian what the
No,
USSR
not taught.
was.
young
As a matter of
Canadian.
fact, even Gen X was not taught about USSR other than what was given to us from the Western German storyline.
Well, okay, that's
Right?
one
We
thing.
knew we were much better educated about Nazism and fascism than we were about straight up USSR, their implementation of socialism. And it was
Well,
until years after the wall came down, after Perestroika, after Glasnost, before we began to realize what went on in Russia behind the Iron Curtain was incredibly dark and incredibly dangerous and had already fed its way into the West.
well, when you say we, I'm sorry, I will say you, because most Canadians don't know nothing about what happened in Soviet Union. I studied this since 15 years, and I could relate to two books.
Yeah.
The first book is 200 Years Together from Solzhenitsyn, when he talks about the relationship between the Jews and the Russian people, not the Soviet Union. Then after that, when you go deeply in the history of Soviet Union, I can relate to Michael Jones, who talks about the deprivation and the perversion of the Bolshevik in the 1920s, just after the Civil War. So when you look at the phenomenon of the socialism and communism in the United States, it is 70 in United States. That's a Freudian slip. But most Canadians don't know nothing about this. I started to be aware of that 5 or 7 years ago because I was reading a lot about it, and my wife is Russian. My wife was born in Soviet Union, so she gives me insight. Most Canadians today don't know what is happening, and they don't know what's happening in Ukraine either. They just follow what the mainstream media tell them, and they wave their little Ukrainian flag like they were spitting on the Freedom Convoy because the trucker didn't want to have the injection. They said we just want to have freedom of choice.
Yes.
So 75% of the population is completely ignorant about those. They just follow the narrative.
Do you think this is something new? Personally, I think we've gotten dumber. I think propaganda has gotten way more in your face, and we've entered a new realm. But a lot of people would say, look at the war in Iraq, weapons of mass destruction.
Well, we know it's the fake is there since the Second World War. We're just surprised now.
If such things were actually stored there, they were given ample time to move them before boots hit the ground. Right? So it's
50 years.
There are elements where the right hand does not tell the left hand what it's doing. And there are elements where the right hand and the left hand are operating in unison.
I have the feeling
we call that uniparty.
Well, the right hand and the left hand, they both have one hand in your pocket,
right?
Yeah, and they take the money before you can even dig in. So what I say, like you mentioned, payment ignorance. That's the key. If we are ignorant and we don't ask question about, we don't challenge the political system.
Andre, you mentioned the Ukraine wave flagging. That really woke me up. Like that Ukraine flag, it's a symbol for the left. It's like an FU to critical thinkers. Like, I don't care what you say. I'm just going to continue believing it.
You were ready to open your eyes because you were hurt by the fake pandemic and the hoax that we saw for 5-6 years, but it is there since many years. When you see that they change the narrative, like I said, you change the SIM card and suddenly it is another flag. No, it's not a joke. And I'm a critical thinker. I have Ukrainian friends. I can guarantee you 3 years ago, it was a nightmare to have discussion with them. They were totally lobotomized and brainwashed. And I was trying to explain them what was happening behind the scene. They didn't want to hear it. Same thing with the injection, same thing with the media control. So that's mass propaganda. That works, and it works very well.
Yeah,
it works very well.
Wolf made an interesting comment there regarding tribal marker and a holy symbol. I want to expand on tribalism for a moment. Marxism inevitably cannibalizes itself. To do so, it expands into intersectionalism, right? The smallest atom, atomize, break it down. The end result is tribalism. So Marxism will be its own demise because it will generate a tribalistic response in those who resist. So what happens? So what, by creating this little pro-Ukrainian tribe, intersectionalism, they inadvertently create anti-Ukrainian tribes of various points on the spectrum against it. There's no, because this is a simple psychological response, right? And I look at Pavlov for this. The dogs that had a ready bowl of food never learned to salivate. They weren't conditioned.
Right? You know, this is interesting what you're mentioning, because when you talk about Marxism and anti-Marxism, there's a French philosopher who was talking about fascism, and he said, what is the movement Antifa? Anti-fascism is the new fascism.
Yes, because
they under the idea of tolerating everything, they tolerate nothing. Right. There's a pedophile in France, and he was saying, 1968 in France, you don't have the right to forbid anything. Albert Camus was saying, if everything is possible, murder is possible.
Right.
So you arrive at a point where you do not prohibit anything, so you undermine authority, any authority, moral authority, political authority. And after that, what happens? It's the West. It's the far West. It's the one has the most power. Look at Trump now. He did not threat anybody, but Greenland, Canada. Now, you know, when he sent Keith Kellogg in Kiev, he was proposing a deal to Zelensky. Okay, you can give me 50% of the territory with rare earth, and that's the way to pay back United States.
Right.
And Zelensky went ballistic. He started to accuse Trump, and Trump called him a dictator. Now it is a joke. Again, now it is vaudeville in French. You know.
Yes.
The funny part is now everything is collapsing. Europe are completely hysteric. Macron called a summit in Paris. Nobody went there except the pre-Baltic Republic.
Right.
It's a joke. It's a joke. And at that time, Russia it's like this fairy tale from Ivan Krylov. The cook ask his cat, Vasya. He says, Vasya, check the chicken while I go smoke a cigarette outside. He comes back and the chicken is eating, the cat is eating the chicken. He says, what did you do, Vasya? I told you to. And the cat is eating the chicken. That I don't care about what you think. So Russia now they say to United States, you want to negotiate? Fine, let's talk. Yeah. We'll take years. Like you said, 20 years, maybe 10 years of negotiation.
Yeah.
And in that, you have Canada, who is a vassal. And Canada is arriving at a point where, we will start to lift the curtain and see the dust or the carpet, and we will see all the dust and the corruption. And people are afraid because they're all corrupted.
Can we segue from that? No. I don't want to change the conversation too much, but you said the corruption.
Well, we know it.
Isn't that all we talk about?
We always talk about that.
So we're just changing, it's just a tonal change.
Well, that's just not a segue at all. Yeah.
Right? Corruption.
Following up on that, this is the distribution of senators in Canada. Like, this just goes to show you that when Andre says we don't have a democracy, this isn't a fair, level playing field.
No.
Well, when you mentioned this, 24 for Ontario, 24 for Quebec. The population of Quebec is 9 million. The population of Ontario is what, 13, 14 million. It's 1.5 more. And you would say you would go at the pro rata of the demography.
Yes.
That could be a good argument. Then the other argument is who's nominating the senators.
The provinces are authorized under the Constitution, even under the BNA Act or early documents like that, they make a short list of who they recommend.
Yes.
And historically, the Prime Minister and the Governor General and the rest of the
decides.
Senate, they look at the list. They look at the list historically and accept that list and then pick from that list historically. But lately, Trudeau has been looking at the lists that are given to him from the provinces, Alberta as a very recent example, ignoring all the names on that list, picking their own.
There's something else. Earlier, Timmy, you said that we need set election dates.
Yes.
I would say we need, 1 or 2 senators per province, like in the U.S. I don't know. I don't get this.
I'd like. I don't have a problem with the idea of the Senate, the like House of Lords kind of idea. I don't, but you go back to the Reform Party and the Triple E discussion, right? Now I'm going to forget what those E's are: equal, elected, and effective.
Well, that came from the Reform. It came from Manning, Clifford Manning.
Yes.
It came from what's his name? Peter MacKay.
Okay.
And Stephen Harper, who were proposing to have an elected Senate. You remember that? What's that? That one E is elected.
Elected, yes, and I'd be in favor of that. The question then is, what kind of weight would a senator have to weigh onto? Because House of Commons is supposed to be the legislative body. The House of Commons is supposed to be the source from which a bill is authored. Right, received, debated, and then sent
and
for
proposed. Yes, voted on.
Right, and so how much influence should the Senate have on that process? Right. So my thought there is, except for rubber stamping's not right, because why would I want to spend $200,000 a year on a House of Lords that does nothing but rubber stamp stuff until they're dead? So what it was intended to be is no longer the way is no longer what it was intended to be. And you have Trudeau intentionally, well, they've been doing this for dozens of years. I remember Harper
was doing it.
He loaded it for his own benefit as well.
They always do it.
Yeah, they always do.
There was a question payment from Wolf about Quebecers oligarchs. Does he have names? Because does he have names? Because I have names. That would be a good question. The Quebec oligarch, I can guarantee you, I have 3-4 names that are always there since 75 years.
Don't mention it on this show. They'll assassinate all 3 of us.
Have another.
No, but it's because the question is Quebecer oligarchs. You could say Ontario oligarch. You can say the establishment.
Oh, the Chateau clique and the family compact thing.
No, it's more complicated than that. You have some people. Who owns all the press. First of all, and think about Rupert Murdoch in Great Britain. Yes. He owned all the press. Now he's attacking. After the scandal, he got out of it, and now he's attacking Trump. You think in Canada, who owns the press in not the CBC Radio Canada, but all the press that are private. All the press that are private in Quebec, it's one family that owns practically all the press, Do you think it's different in the rest of Canada? They control the narrative, so they control the opinion, and they will do whatever they can to push their agenda, whatever it is, what United Nation 2030, whatever the agenda is, they will push it, and they will push people to wave this small flag of Ukraine, or to go get the shot, or the sustainable goal, whatever it is. They control the narrative, and he's right. But we never named them. If you don't identify your enemy, your real enemy, you will not be able to fight them.
Well, then we're good, because we can say Voldemort now.
Well, that's why when we were talking, I was referring to Slapshot, and the fact that people drop the gloves and what happened with the 10 people who were supposed to have collusion with the China? There was a phrase on X: name the names.
Name the names.
Name the names.
And that's
Nobody
gone too
names
now.
the names.
No, because now it's all Team Canada.
That's all that. So we forgot the phrase. We could bring back this phrase: name the names.
Here,
Sorry, guys, I just want to jump in. Who is this news noise guy? He's pretty smart. That's how they got Harris out back in the day, when he started looking at cutting the fat from the government. Who's Harris?
The Doug Harris was the Prime Minister of Ontario, and he was. I remember it was in 2006 when they started to implement the. Yes, he was starting to implement the solar panel program for Ontario Farm. Mike Harris, exactly. Yeah. And what is happening? He was promoting, he was pushing this agenda for farm, so they could do a transition to solar energy and everything. And I think they provisioned $100 million, something like that. And many farms, they started to convert to solar energy. And after 18 months, Harris said, "There's no more money in the program." So, and you arrive at a point where they promise something, but the system never works. It's always, if they say it will cost $500 million, it will cost $5 billion. There's no accountability nowhere in any program, because we are governed by technocrat and incompetent, ignorant. That's the burden we have now. Are we basing our society on a meritocracy or mediocrity? Big difference.
It's mediocrity is too much work.
Well, that's why we're going down the drain, whatever you have Team Canada or not. We're going down the drain, and maybe what Trump is doing with Elon Musk and the DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, he's just saying, well, that's enough.
You know what's funny about DOGE is that the American government already has a department that is responsible for fiscal management and fiscal oversight. They've already got a department that we do too. We got everything. We get everything from provincial ombudsmen to oversight committees to. We have these systems.
DOGE sounds way cooler though than ombudsman. Sounds way cooler.
Well, that's.
I just find DOGE really cheap marketing.
Well, it is cheap marketing. We were referring to Ukraine. And there was an interview with John Elmer. I wanted to mention that because John Elmer is a United States correspondent. He lives in Moscow since 30 years. He's very eloquent. And he was talking about Trump, and that could apply to Poilievre, or that could apply to many people. He said they're talking like with slogan. Yeah. They never, it's axe the tax, the DOGE. They always take a small, because their brain cannot process complex information.
Maybe maybe that's why they're trying to ban TikTok, because they don't like the competition.
Come on. When Trump on Truth Social, when he said, it was funny, he said, it is United States who won the Second World War, helped by Soviet Union, who lost 100 million people during the war. You say, wait a second, man, did you consult an historian or what? What are you having the same cocaine as Zelensky? What is it? They are surrounded by incompetent, and they have declarations that are very. It's show. It's a show. If you follow John Elmer, for example, he's very eloquent. He's a real diplomat, and you can see that he's not pro-Russian or pro-United States. He tries to see the real picture of it, and he tries to give it in a simple manner, which is it's very honorable to do this. There's a lot of people who understand what is happening, but because they don't have any media exposure, they're mute. And I would say information goes up very, very, very slowly. Yeah. If it goes up. Whistleblower was the first 25 years of 21st century. What will be the next? I don't know.
Guys, we promise to keep this to below 3 hours this time.
Too many John Wayne.
So just quickly, what are your thoughts on this argument? We say that by the time the election gets to Manitoba, we already know, it's moot what the rest of the country does. I look at this. This is disgusting. 231 seats for them and 107 for the rest of us peons.
Once upon a time in my lifetime, the election results weren't shown until the following day because of the 4-hour difference. There was a blackout. So
in BC now it took you one.
Sorry, people in Alberta and BC who know what's happened in Thunder Bay and can literally vote accordingly.
Yeah, but that's federal. In BC, it took you 1 month to count everything.
And
it's technology.
We smoke a lot of weed here. Yeah,
provincial election. Yeah, weed mixed with fentanyl.
Why I say this is because we think that in a technological world we will have better results, we will be more efficient, and it is not happening.
And we should, but moral relativism.
Yeah,
right. Because the Book of Judges opens up the first line of the Book of Judges. There was a time when everyone in Israel did what was right in their own eyes, and we are doing the same thing. The problem with us doing the same thing is voices like ourselves and our fourth wall. We should just rename the audience the fourth wall. Actually the fifth column comes into my head, but I don't know if that's the right reference.
No, don't go there. It
makes sense.
So the fourth wall, and there are a lot of capable, intuitive people who are taking the dots and rearrange them in the actual order.
Yes.
Not in the way that the media is telling it to us. Right?
We got a question from the audience. You guys are smart. Thank you. Can a referendum produce a change of procedure of Senate stacking after the fact of Pierre getting in?
No.
There's no referendum that will work in Canada.
An example.
Don't be a salty Quebecer.
No. I can guarantee you.
Yes. Look at, was it 95? Quebec referendum was 95. Is that correct? When was the last one?
1980, 1995.
95. So in 95, we thought we might actually get somewhere with this, but then the powers that be decided to completely fuck the question.
Well, that's the first thing. Don't forget the other thing. You had another.
That's a legal
referendum.
term. Effing
you
the
had
question.
another
swear jar moment, but yeah, that's
Tim,
a legal term.
Tim, you had another referendum. You forgot Charlottetown. That was a national. No, that was a referendum.
Is that the property rights one?
No, that was for the Constitution, the Charlottetown Accord. It was rejected.
There was one. Yeah, they wanted to put property rights in the charter. Is that one?
Maybe, I don't know. I'm not a constituent.
But you are right.
But why I say it doesn't work? I think Tim froze. Maybe it's the earthquake again.
At least it's a flattering pose.
No, because the question is important. A referendum. The electoral system doesn't work, and a referendum will not solve the problem. It's more deep than that.
Who in the federal government would respect the people's voice, i.e. referendum? There's another word too, initiative, although that's more a provincial tool. Who would respect that, the people's, this tool of the people, enough to sit down with the legislature, work it out, develop a program, and implement it?
Yeah.
Who do we think would do that? The answer is nobody.
Well, Indians from India and Chinese, most probably. Noisy made a comment. I disagree with that comment because
Which
he
one?
said, well, if you put it back with the
Oh,
This
80%
comment?
cheaper.
80%, yes, go back to this. This is, I like this. With
Let's
technology, it
talk
would
about-
be 80% cheaper. You can just go to Quebec now because the SAAQ, Société de l'Assurance Automobile du Québec, who's managing license plate and driving license, they implement a system, computer system or platform 2 years ago. It's not working. It was $800 million of development, and now they discovered that all the high management have hidden fees. Now they will go up to $1.3 billion, and the system, it doesn't work. The Ministry of Technology in Quebec looks like a complete idiot, and he says, "Oh, I'm not responsible for this." Who is? Technology does
Alberta.
not serve nothing if you have morons who are programming.
Yeah,
It's not complicated.
Yeah, the things that we can do with our interconnected technologies these days is astonishing, and does actually should represent significant savings and improvements in quality, improvements in customer experience. Should theoretically,
in theory, that's it.
But when all the dirty fingers are responsible for pushing the money around, you end up with a system that is intentionally designed, maybe not intentionally.
No, it is intentionally designed
for a job creation program.
Yes, it is intentionally designed. It is intentionally designed. They when IT company they propose a contract, or they bid on an offer from, or a requirement for the government, they always push their fees 20 to 50% more, because they want to avoid bad surprises. That's bad design. They don't do design. They don't analyze the job. They don't analyze the process. They don't do the requirement right. And after that, they compensate with increase in cost. I saw this so many times. Forget about the last 50 years with technology. Yes, technology could be incredible, but when it is managed by morons and idiots, that's what you have. You always end up like that. I'm sorry.
I always blame the voter. Just take the jar. I always blame the voter, though. Like, the voters are putting up with this. Yeah, the politicians are stupid, but the voters are like, well, we're just going to vote this guy in, or we'll vote that other party in again. And
they're manipulated.
Andre is not necessarily talking about elected individuals. He's talking about general contractors. He's talking about suppliers in the industry. He's talking about tradesmen and tradeswomen who know that it only takes 2 people with a shovel, but there's 7 there.
You mentioned everything.
Like, exactly. And those are employees.
Yeah, but if you had a general contractor that you're using, and the general contractor is using an idiot bricklayer, you'd still fire the general contractor, and you bring in another one.
No, he won't fire the idiot bricklayer because that's his wife's youngest brother.
Yeah, but that's his problem. You would just go get another
taxpayer's problem, but the taxpayer doesn't care because the taxpayer is the one on the shovel.
Well, I'm not on the shovel. Andre's not on the shovel.
Well,
the producers I'm talking about.
In my corner, I've got your shovels.
Tim mentioned something important: the level of bureaucracy. I mentioned the level of ignorance or incompetence, and the fact that it benefits people. It benefits people, and if I cut your income, or if I cut your benefits, you will fight back. That's a normal reaction.
Yes.
Then that's why I always talk about corrupted moral. If we
introduced the union into this situation,
well, unions have a big responsibility in this. They're corporation now. In Quebec, you have la Fédération des Travailleurs du Québec, the Federation of Workers in Quebec. It's a fund that is worth $35 billion. $35 billion to defend people who are essentially a construction worker, and they are on stock market, and it's a huge corporation. Henri Massé, who was the president of the Fédération des Travailleurs du Québec in 1990, he was saying the union, it is corporate Quebec. corporate union. Those unions. That's why Jagmeet Singh drives a Maserati, because no. That's why I say this. It's because all those unions, they're so powerful. Look at the Teamsters. Look at the Ontario Teacher Union. It's billions of dollars of money. They have to manage this money. They have to I would say control it. It's huge. A lot of pension plans are based on those big corporations that are unionized. That's one other problem. The corruption is everywhere. It touches everybody. There was a woman, the woman who was the president of the, I forgot, it's in Quebec. She was in Dubai for the COP27, which is on environment with the United Nations, flying a private jet. Wait, she's the president of union in Quebec. What is she doing in Dubai? We saw this last week. It was in Montreal with the snowstorm. The mayor was in Colombia, having a party in Colombia when they cannot even clean the street in Montreal. They act like it is normal. Everything is normal. I'm amazed that people are not on the street now having.
That's what I'm trying to get at. Like, the people, they just don't revolt. They don't rebel.
No,
they don't even protest.
No.
Well, they do, but not enough voices are protesting, and we're not getting any real representation in mass media.
Yes.
And those voices that once upon a time, back to 2020 and forward, were actually representing through alt media outlets, right? True North, Rebel, Keen Bext, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They've all swung toward Conservative Party of Canada support, because that's where their bread and butter is going to come after Pierre rebrands the CBC, and he's going to be looking to. So these voices have swung also. We've also lost whatever voice we did have. So then you have little, mom and pop startups, to use News's line, like our podcast and Sue's podcast and others who've done similar things, who are, as far as anybody is concerned, nobodies, and starting to stand up because there is no means. Look at, for example, nobody in the mainstream will give Maxime Bernier a voice. He literally has to go to the States to get similar aligned ideological podcasters and whatnot, who will interview and have conversation with him, so that their supporters in Canada will watch an American show to get information about Bernier, who is has actually formed an actual federal party that's simply not getting an ear in the mass media. So back to News again, he mentioned we should be doing startups. And that goes back to something that's very important to me as a business consultant. I've always pushing people to say, do something local. Do something local. It's not easy. It's hard to do. The provincial government is very keen on drawing as much taxes out of the private business person as they humanly can. Lots of mom and pops are suffering because they have difficulty competing against big block retailers, but it can be done. So the small groups, back to family businesses, back to apprenticeships, back to mentorships, back to cooperatives, that's how we turn this around. So being politically involved, the way we talk about it every show, right? Be involved in your Boy Scouts, your Girl Guides, your hockey clubs, your lacrosse clubs, participate in your library activities and groups like that, to become involved in your local municipality as a, as a counselor, your school board, because we've got a lot of that going on in the last few years. Get involved in provincial politics, regional boards, regional bureaucrat. If we have people whose moral relativism is more moral than relative, moving into these positions and taking this territory back, we can turn the tide. Because eventually you'll be in a position where you'll be hiring the people who lean on the shovels. Eventually you'll be in a position where you'll be deciding, this is how much money this project costs, not a nickel over. Oh, and by the way, we did our risk assessment. We did our cost analysis. We know what we're talking about. So we move back to that. And I believe that the small mom and pop business and the independent individual participating in the local community in this way, I think that's the way to turn it around.
Yes,
Let's,
but it will take.
go to
It will
Andre,
take.
and we 5 minutes, and then we'll end it.
Okay, it will take 20 years because what you're mentioning is that the we were talking about globalism. Now we're going back to what would be. We were talking about the pendulum, going back to more something that is more nationalism or patriotism or localism, if you prefer. But it will take 20 years. You untangle something that is working for 20, 30 years.
You used the word that Sweden or Switzerland has a
subsidiarity.
Subsidiarity.
So but it will take time because you think about the bureaucracy. You want to start a small farm with the dairy cartel. You want to have 2 cows. You need to buy quota. Each quota is $40,000. You didn't even buy the cow, but you have to buy the quota.
Can we talk about this? I know we're running out of time. The dairy cartel, you're paying a shit ton of money for nothing. Like you're not
nothing.
Where does this money go?
Well,
does it come back to the taxpayer?
No, it goes to the system. That system manage all the dairy product in Canada.
Right.
The board gets the money.
The board gets the money.
Right?
The board gets the money.
Organization.
I know, but like you have an income tax, which is at least you're being robbed, and then you have a driver's license. You pay $15 a year for the fat chick behind the counter to do the paperwork.
15. Wow.
Whatever.
75.
But like the dairy cartel, it's a license, but it's like millions of dollars. Like where does this go? Ukraine?
Yeah.
Like, where does it end up?
No, it actually goes to fund
bureaucracy.
It goes to fund the maple syrup cartel in New Brunswick.
Well, this is a Pandora box in the sense that, or it is a polichinelle secret everybody knows about it. The fact that here subsidizing your industry is not bad in itself if you have rules. How come a young farmer cannot have 10 cows? He has to invest $400,000 before even buying anything because that's the quota. He cannot get out of it. So it means his father cannot even give him the farm as a heritage and retire because it's the price of the farm are skyrocketing because of those quotas. Overprotecting the system. It's the system. It's those unions. They're protecting their job, protecting their self-interest.
I'm thinking about ostriches.
Yes, yeah, same thing.
I'm thinking about chicken, poultry, because I'm thinking about bird flu nonsense, which I'm thinking is a narrative in part produced by the poultry board in order to rig. Thank you for the timing on that word. To rig the system to keep those who don't have the economic and legal clout to resist the big voices and the big quota owners, to keep the little guy in fear and to keep him physically suppressed by every now and then going to his farm and killing off 20,000 of his animals.
That's so the
madness of it is extended to ostriches of all frickin' things.
It's everywhere. We are a colony in Canada of Great Britain. When Keith Starmer they implemented in Great Britain, they said every chicken owner will have to register their chicken.
Yeah.
But you know what the British did? They're very Machiavellian British. They went on the website and they were going to buy roasted chicken and they registered the roasted chicken. They made the website collapse. Like you idiot. You want to play this game? We will play this game with you. They collapse the system. We have to resist. Somebody arrives in your farm. He's an inspector, health inspector. You welcome him with a gun. You say you want to test my animals. You go out. You don't have the right to be here. You remember it is Daniel Smith, I think, who said to the health official bureaucrat federal, they said you will not come in Alberta to inspect our farm.
Oh, when the CFIA was doing random inspections of dairy and
I think that was
yes.
I think that was Scott Moe.
That was Scott Moe. So he said, "You have no authority here."
Yeah.
That was a very good statement. So I honestly,
Yeah.
I advise people to not be violent, but to resist those I would say this type of bureaucracy. You were for the ostriches. They arrive, they don't test, or they say, well, we have to slaughter all the birds, and that's the law.
Isn't that that's Ukraine in the 60s?
Or you can go deep there. You can go
Right.
you can go in many things, but when the law is unlawful, you have to oppose.
I
You
agree.
have to oppose.
Yeah.
Like you said, maybe Martin Luther King,
Martin Luther King Jr.
You oppose peacefully, but
Yes.
where we will go next, I don't
Yes.
know. I'm not suggesting nothing.
Well, I'm in favor of sit-ins. I really am. It's just the question is who would participate. And the truth is that they have to be independently organized.
We could take some example with the oil protesters who sit.
That's right. The environmental protesters are doing it. Why is
yes, but they're completely idiot. Also,
Andre, I don't think that was a sit-in. They attacked the pipeline with axes.
No.
That's not the reference. I'm referring back to when I was a teenager and in my early 20s when we heard, and people would simply line up on roadsides or chain themselves to heavy equipment.
Yes,
not when people were doing stupid nonsense like blowing up stations and transformers and stuff. That's too much.
Yes, but Tim, that was in the last century.
In the last century. Right.
Sorry, I'm from the last century too.
Yeah. So basically,
we are dinosaurs here.
Yeah. We are all the March hare. We're all
all right, guys. We're at 90 minutes. We'll keep it civil this time. No 3-hour nonsense. I'm just gonna end it with this. Not news related. There's no tsunami warning. So
how far inland is that?
So I'm surprised it hit me first. Even though I'm farther away than you're in Coquitlam. Where are you? Abbotsford? Oh, okay, I see. You're in Abbotsford.
I'm in Chilliwack.
It's further than Abbotsford.
See that little curl in the road? Keep going east. Yep. Follow the highway east. All right, up in there. That's where I live.
Okay, that's why.
Okay, I'm feeling it now.
Well, you know why though? Yeah, I'm feeling it now.
I'm feeling it now.
Look at the valley. That's easier to get a shockwave through there. Most of the valley is sediment.
Okay.
You got like mountains. They're kind of more dense, much like the Canadian.
I don't know how any of this works.
Very dense.
So it was 4.8, huh? That's what
4.8 they settled on. Yeah, it hasn't changed. I felt that shockwave though. That kind of gave me a bit of a start.
It's the cartels shaking in their boots.
The cartels shaking in their boots. Well done. I think we'll finish on that.
News Noise Inc. I like this.
Yeah, you can stay.
No, what's the Juno News?
Juno
News.
Juno News. Now it could be Noise.
Vexed and Candace Malcolm.
There's a lot of alternative media that are growing now, or rising.
Yeah, that's good because our alt news sources from the 2020 and forward, they've all turned into CPC shills.
You never know, man. If the Conservative Party comes and offers us 10 grand, we can promote for them as well. So
if they are
Pierre, if you're listening,
well, if they are elected,
a lot more than 10 grand, man. My soul is worth at least 11.
If they are elected, and if there's an election,
I think there will be an election. I think it'll be in September, and I think the Conservatives will win big, but not the tsunami, that they were hoping for.
I'm not really in the prediction game. I
am, but I keep losing. I just have to try harder.
You know what, Andre? It depends on what Donald Trump is posting on social media on that day. So
isn't that true?
Most probably, you're right.
True?
You're right.
Okay, so everybody, mind your office poll.
All right, guys.
We're out
Thanks
of
for
clever stuff
watching.
to
Thanks for
say.
tuning in. And I don't know, Timothy, Andre, thank you very much.
It's always a pleasure to fight with you.
Tim.
Sometimes we disagree.
Yeah,
What
of
are the
course.
odds?
It would be boring if we would not.
It would be boring if we all agreed.
Yes.
I agree.
Agreed. See you guys later.
Okay, turn off the lights.
Goodbye.